Very gloomy looking Halifax. We can sort of tell that summer's coming to an end now because it's pouring down with rain, and also it's the Ebor meeting at August. Probably not two things to put together there. Big gloomy.
Rain in Halifax is 364 days a year, I think, isn't it? So yeah, I wouldn't use that.
So we're going to take a look at all six of the 7 races taking place at York. Yeah. It's Matt Gardner, of course, in the hot seat today, and we'll start off with a Group 3 contest, the Strensol Stakes. 9 due to head to post, and Lord Glitters is the favourite at the moment. What are you looking at in this?
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he's favourite. I think he's got the best form, doesn't he? He's been really good this year. He did shake well at Goodwood last time. Didn't go much of a gallop that day, and came from the back. That's his style, isn't it? This is obviously a little bit easier. I kind of think lack of pace he might be hamstrung by that again a little bit. There's no obvious sort of front runner. You suspect maybe Threading, maybe Chief Ironside. Obviously up in grade he's going to struggle, but you think they might make the running. But like I say, there's no obvious pace. So even though it is a drop in grade for him, it's an easier race. I'd be a little bit concerned about that. And with that concern, there's not anything in his price. You know, like 15 to 8 there or thereabouts. It's short enough for me, I think.
Yeah, he's quickly drawn in the betting at least to a 9 to 1 shot in seniority. Surely not going to go off tomorrow, that price being that he's owned by the Queen.
No, well, yeah, I mean, if you're getting anywhere near that, I think he's definitely a bet. Like I say, it is a step up in grade for him. Obviously trying to translate handicap form to level weights. He was seeing to better effect than some at Goodwood, I think, but he's got a really sharp turn of foot, and I think that will serve him well in these sort of races. You see these handicappers, they come out of handicapped into group races, and they're often reliant on a big field, strong pace scenario, whereas I think seniority does have that turn of foot that will see him cope quite well. He does need to improve a little bit, but it's not out of the question. And I think, I mean, even if, you know, I'd back him down to 6 to 1 probably, to be honest, if he's that sort of price tomorrow. I think he's got a better chance than the market suggests at the moment, and you know he's going to need to improve, but I think he's probably capable of a little bit better still.
Now, I've been trying for about 30 seconds to try and get the pronunciation of this right, and I think I'm going to fail at it. Mutashari,
I think.
Mustashri won this race last year, of course.
He did, yeah. Yeah, he proved he retains all of his ability on his comeback. He's still pretty late in the race for a 5-year-old. Again, similar to Lord Glitters, I don't think there's loads in his price. I think there's probably more value to him than there is Lord Glitters. But I'd be looking elsewhere, because I'd be back in seniority. I'd probably back Mirando each way as well. Obviously, you're getting your 3 places. Theoretically, like, he wasn't that far off his best last time, even though he finished last of 5. He's a horse that, to be honest, has been a little bit disappointing since the beginning of last season. Kind of starting out the year last year, you thought he was going to emerge as a Group 2, Group 1 miler. Kind of hasn't happened. The theory that he's reliant on softer ground was blown up the water a little bit last time when he, like I say, he ran more or less up to his rating on good to firm. You get in your 3 places. I don't think there's much depth to this. I don't really like Zaki. I actually quite fancied him at Haydock, but his attitude let him down a bit, so I can see why they're sticking the cheap pieces on him. Threading has a really good chance on her York form, but she was just disappointing for no obvious reason last time, so she's got a little bit to prove. So, like I said, I'll be back in seniority, and I probably will back Mirando at a big price each way as well. If he's, you know, he's double figures at the moment. If he's that still, yeah, each way is the way to go with him.
Yeah, double figures, and so it's 20 to 1 at the moment.
Well,
so,
yeah, like, I mean, I wouldn't have thought he'd be that tomorrow. I think he'd be more sort of 14, 16s, but yeah, I think he's probably, well, he's definitely better than that makes out. So yeah, each way price definitely with him, but yeah, I like seniority.
Okay, so seniority and Mirando in the first, and we move on to a really easy second race here, a 16 runner handicap over 1 mile and 5, and 7 to 1 the field at the moment. Corgi is the favourite. Is that the way you're looking, or would you be playing one at a big price?
I fancy a couple at a big price actually. Yeah, I do like some of the ones to the head of the market. I like Corgi. He's likeable. He's consistent. He's proven steadily progressive this year as well, and some of his form's quite strong. It's sort of 7 to 1 mark. I'm not sure there's much in that given how competitive this is. I do like Making Miracles. The horse he finished second to back here in May, Baghdad. I really like Baghdad actually, and Making Miracles has done well since. Again, similar to Corgi, those two I think are top of the list in terms of giving you a run for your money. They're very consistent, straightforward, and you can see them being banged there. Supernova's quite a short price. I do quite like him as well, but the thing putting me off him is you suspect this will be a bit of a culture shock. He's only raced in small fields. Obviously, this is a completely different environment, very competitive, much bigger field, different style of track as well, to be honest. So he's probably short enough, taking that into account. At big prices, I think I'll be looking at Polish or Polish. Don't know which one it is of the two.
My eye was drawn to Polish, sorry, but now you've said Polish, I can't get it out.
Don't know, could be either. I should probably listen to some commentary or something, but he was short on experience when he ran in a handicap at Goodwood last time. He moved through it quite nicely, and then when the race really began in earnest, he sort of backed out of it a little bit. I think he'll have learned quite a bit from that. He looked very progressive prior to that. I think he's a big price at sort of the 20-1 mark. I think that experience will have done him some good. Like I say, his form was pretty solid before that. He won a maiden at Salisbury that's worked out pretty well. Going into this, I think his mark still looks quite fair. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do better still. So, he's one of the ones at a big price I'll be looking at, definitely.
What do you think about Berkshire Blue? He strikes me as one that's having quite a good attitude.
Yeah, I think the trip's going to be key for him going up in trip. He won at the Showguard Cup. He was pretty hard work, to be honest. Joe Moreira rode him that day, and he was off the bridle about 3.5 out. Finished off to really good effect. Like I say, going up in trip's going to suit. He's going to have more to come. I suspect he'll probably need it from a handicapping perspective to win this sort of race. But the trip's going to be key for him.
Are there any others at a price? You've mentioned Polish and Supernova's a bit shorter. Is there anything else that's catching your eye?
Yeah, the other one would be the Kamani horse, Kulongaluk. We picked some good names.
I thought it would just be Cool Long Look, but there's a Rogo in there.
There is. I don't know, but yeah, he's again another big price, similar to Berkshire Blue in that the trip I think is going to be key for him. Won a 3-runner race over 1.5 miles last time, stayed on really well. He's only a couple of pound higher. Obviously, this is way more competitive, but I think he's one of those horses that as his stamina's drawn out, he's going to improve quite rapidly. So, I'd be looking at those two at big prices. It's very competitive, but I think those two will outrun sort of 16, 20-1 prices, definitely.
So expect a polished effort from Polish. That's
that'll do. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll jump into race number 3 now, the City of York Stakes, and looking at the field, the eye immediately is drawn to Expert Eye, who ran so well in higher grade last time. Yeah,
he really should be winning this, shouldn't he? He was really impressive at Royal Ascot when he won. He bolted up, didn't he, really? And it's the first time in his career that he's strung 2 good runs together. He's been very in and out prior to that. This is a lot easier. He really should be winning. I think from a win perspective, it's basically a no-bet race. I don't think Soudois should be any shorter than 3-1. Above the rest is third in, and I think that tells you plenty about the sort of strength and depth of this race, in that he was winning listed races on the all-weather. This is a very different kettle of fish. So I think if you were looking for a bet similar to the Mirando bet in the first, you are probably looking at Tabarak for Richard Hannon in from an each way point of view. Arrives in good form. His form's pretty solid. 3 places on offer again. If you get an 8-10-1, I definitely fancy him to finish second or third. But if Expert Eye shows up in the sort of form that he showed at Ascot and Goodwood, then you'd be betting in the distance market, I think, in terms of how far he should be winning by.
Yeah, 3 places on offer, so it would be you'd say your 3 then would be Expert Eye, Soudois, and Tabarak.
I don't really fancy it. I don't really fancy Soudois, to be honest. I think he's short enough at 3-1. But yeah, I'd be looking at Tabarak as an each way bet, definitely to nick a place.
Be good to see good old Gordon Lord Byron there, and well, he's about 97 now, isn't he? He's 10. Gosh.
Yeah, still going. Yeah,
he's still and that leads us nicely into the Ebor anyway, the big one tomorrow. And Stratum's all the rage in the betting, but on Timeform ratings, he does have a few in front of him. Yeah,
he's got a little bit to find, I think, strictly from a handicapping perspective. Obviously, it is possible in the sense that he's from the Willie Mullins yard. Obviously, still like the race on flat. It was a good time that he recorded when he won at Newbury. The thing that's kind of thrown me a little bit is the drop back in trip. He kind of looks like one of those horses. He doesn't quicken. He sort of powers his way to the front, if you know what I mean, and that's kind of what he did at Newbury. He went clear. I think if you're looking at Cesarovic, then absolutely, I think he's a really interesting horse for that. I would have a slight concern about the drop back in trip, and with the money that there's been from already, I think that he wouldn't be for me from a betting perspective.
Yeah, I think it's the owners. I can't remember the name of the owners' colours, but they always seem to be really well punted, don't they, in these sorts of races?
Is it Tony Bloom? Yeah, it is. It's Tony Bloom, isn't it?
Tony Bloom. Yeah, they're always really well backed, and it'd be interesting. Particularly if the money keeps coming, it might be a big clue.
Yeah, I think it probably will do. It's the sort of horse that people really get stuck into. But for me, he's already shot enough, I think. So yeah, not for me this time.
Who sets the standard here for you then? Would it be Teodoro, or is there something else?
Yeah, well, theoretically Teodoro's got the best chance at the weights. He is top rated. Under a £4 penalty that he picked up for his win in the Rosa Lancaster at Haydock. There was no fluke about that. It wasn't the strongest race for the grade you'll ever see, but like I said, there's no fluke about it. He, in theory, could be rated even a little bit higher. The thing again that's putting me off trip, obviously going up in trip this time, I think he's far from a certain stayer. They have to run here, considering that he's well in. It'd be stupid not to, but I don't think he'll stay. So again, stamina would rule him out for me, I think. There are a couple that you can mention. I think Blakeney Point's an interesting horse. He did shape well at Haydock on his penultimate start. He wasn't good enough up in grade last time. Obviously back in a handicap, I think he's of some interest. Nikita obviously back at the scene of his win here last year. That was £5 lower. Running himself back into form. It was a good run last time, but you'd be disappointed if he won, and that a better treated horse couldn't do it. I think the one that's a big price for me is Muntaha for John Gosden. Obviously a horse that's tried this trip several times and hasn't stayed. He shaped well in the St Ledger going back to his 3-year-old campaign. Was ridden probably a bit too aggressively, but I think he hasn't stayed, but he's not necessarily been beaten for stamina at a mile and 3/4. It's kind of been other factors that have influenced it. I think he looks well worth another try at this sort of trip. His mark looks fair, judged on his sort of listed and group form. And he's the sort of horse that, he has just edged down the weights enough to get him into these top end handicaps without it being a sort of burden. And I think if he's at his best that we've seen, he's shown good form this year, so if he's at his best, the 20 to 1 that's available about him is far too big for me.
Okay, so 22 to 1 at the moment. The other one I wanted to ask you quickly about was, usually in these races when there's multiple runners, they get ignored a bit, and Whiskey Sour's in there for Willie Mullins. Would it be a surprise if he caused a bit of an upset in Closs Sutton by taking this himself?
It wouldn't be a surprise at all, would it? He ran a really good race behind Lagos de Vegas at Royal Ascot. Not seen to best effect in the Galway hurdle since. Obviously going back onto the flat. Not a surprise at all. He's the sort of horse that might actually be ignored in the bet. You see it at the festival a bit, don't you? The second and third strings that are ignored slightly. Again, probably wouldn't be for me from a handicap perspective. I think that are probably horses that are better treated, but it's sort of horse that might be overpriced for an each way bet, definitely.
I suppose as well, I don't know if you saw Lagos to Vegas last week. She ran like a drain.
I didn't know.
Over in Ireland.
Did she? No, I didn't see
out the back of the telly. So
really?
Not really a good thing. So it would be Muntaha there then.
Yeah, it's really competitive, but I when I was, when you look at a horse and you think that's got a good chance and you're expecting it to be maybe 12 to 1, when you're looking 20s, 22s, in a race like this, I think he's, for a horse of his ability, I think that's far too big a price. So he'd be the one for me.
Excellent. So that's the winner of the Ebor, done and dusted then, Muntaha.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So we move on to race number 5 now, listed race for 2-year-olds over 5 furlongs. Imagine this is going to be fast and furious. There's 2 at the top of the market as well, or 3 at the top of the market. 4 at the 5 of the. This can't be.
No,
can't be the right answer.
No, I didn't see any prices for this, so I suspect that's just a bit of a guide. But
yeah, I'll check has mugged me off there because they're all 2s, 3s, and 7 to 2. I got all excited reading the. So we'll ignore that, and I'll ask you instead who sets the standard here.
Well, Sabre sets the standard. He's the pick on form. He was runner-up in the Windsor Castle, a good run at Goodwood last time. Slight concern about the drop back to 5 furlongs. Kind of when he was running at 5 before, he looked like he wanted 6. Ran a good race at 6 last time, staying on. Obviously, the York 5 furlongs is a quick 5 furlongs, so I'd have a slight concern about that. Vintage Brute, who beat Sabre earlier in the year, he got back on track last time despite not really looking in love with the track at Goodwood. He's got plenty of speed, so I probably fancy him a little bit more than Sabre. The one that I'd probably look at instead, to be honest, would be Glory Fighter. He won at Lingfield earlier in the year, and the horse that he beat went out and won the Windsor Castle. Disappointed on his both of his starts since, but he's got lots and lots of speed. You know, it's just short of 5 furlongs at Lingfield, so I think he's probably worth another go. It doesn't look a particularly strong race, to be honest. Like I say, Sabre and Vintage Brute sort of set the standard, but we kind of know where we're at with them, whereas Glory Fighter could yet get back on the sort of upward track. So not a particularly strong race, but I'd be looking towards Glory Fighter, I think, in this.
I'll quickly ask you, because you've mentioned Vintage Brute, what you've made of the King Power horses so far, because they seem to have spent an eye-watering amount of money. I mean, they've got Well Done Fox in here as well for 250,000 as a yearling.
Yeah.
Do you think they've been throwing money at, you know, a lot of money?
Definitely. I mean, he, as a rule, obviously, it's Tony Bloom, isn't it? They do spend big money, and they spend big money at the sales as well. In terms of, like, Vintage Brute was bought at the London sale just before Royal Ascot, which, you know, was an excellent bit of business for the previous owner, I think, because it was, again, 250 grand or something that they spent on him, and you know, that's too much, really. They obviously do get the odd good horse, but yeah, I think if you look at the sums of money they're spending, it's eye-watering, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I always do think it's interesting, especially when there's not much form to go on and they've got these eye-watering yearling figures.
Yeah,
sometimes it can be a bit of a clue if the other ones aren't running to the mark. Maybe that one won't either. But one to go, on to race number 6, mile and quarter handicap. Another really tricky race. I'm not overly convinced that they are the official prices, but we'll go with the top rated instead with Pivioni. Does he set a good standard?
He does, yeah, and he's I actually quite fancy him in this. It is competitive, but he was a really impressive winner at Sandown 3 starts ago. It'll be ran at Goodwood last time behind Alfaris, trapped on the inside, tanking along, got no run whatsoever. The impression was that he could have gone very close that day. I think this sort of scenario, big field, the track at York, I think will really suit him. Long straight and, you know, plenty of room. He is a strong traveller. The blinkers are replacing previous headgear. Won the visor, and I think he won the cheek pieces as well. I think it was the visor that he wore first time when he shot up at Sandown. So I think the demands of this race will really suit him, and it is competitive, but I do really fancy him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking down the field. Is it likely to be a real bunch finish? I mean, there's one that catches my eye just because I remember him. Nicholas T always seems to be a hard luck story because he always seems to find trouble.
Yeah, just the way he's ridden, definitely needs luck in running. I think there's going to be a decent gallop on here. There's quite a few horses that do race up with the pace. It is competitive. I think Gulf of Poets is a horse that might be overpriced as well tomorrow. He's got a really good record fresh. We've not seen him since May, I don't think. But he was thriving at the time. Still on a handy mark. I think they run him here instead of the mile handicap yesterday. Like I say, I think he's second or third in on the Timeform card, which I suspect gives him more of a chance than the betting will do tomorrow. I think he was priced up for the mile handicap at about 20. So if you go on that sort of thing, then I think he's a big price. But it is competitive, but I do really fancy the Andrew Bolton horse, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the... is that Pivioni?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the ratings, and you're right. Gulf of Poets is joint second top with another touch, and they in turn are 3 clear of everyone else.
Yeah. I suspect the market will undersell his chance, definitely. So again, he's got a really good record. Fresh, he's won sort of twice, I think, 2-3 times after a break. So from each way perspective in an open race, definitely Gulf of Poets. But Pavoni for me would be a pretty good fancy. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. If I had to pressure you and get you to give us a nap, is there anything that sticks out if I put the prices in?
Yeah, I like that one in the last. I like Pavoni, and I do really like Montajar and Ebor. Actually, I think he's far too big a price for a horse that, you know, master rating sort of 117 Timeform. That I think that sort of price is a bit of an insult to him, to be honest. So hopefully he puts his best foot forward. I think the step back up in trip is well worth another go. Obviously it's the Ebor, it's one of the toughest handicaps of the year, isn't it? But for me, that sort of price, yeah, well worth a bet.
Well, there you go. The money keeps coming for Stratum. It could just push out. There could be a big boil over in the Ebor.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed.
Cheers, Matt.